Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Kieran Danner from Document Management Tasmania, and thank you yet again for joining me. Today we're going to talk about where are we at. Now I'm going to remind you of the concept of our YouTube channel is meant to be informative. It's meant to actually help you navigate through the challenges of a pandemic, because I live on an island. I'm coming to you today from downtown Hobart, Tasmania, and the last thing I want to see is any of my clients in the great state of Tasmania get damaged through this pandemic, or nationally. The things we're going to talk about is basic business advice, which is going to bring you through this pandemic safely. Over the last weeks, months, I have been speaking tirelessly about the importance of relationships with your clients, and relationship with your suppliers, because those things are really, really critical. Well, one of the things that I do, and I do this religiously because it's important, and if you don't do it, it's important, you should start doing this, and I know that you will after this YouTube, is I was talking to my bank. Now, the reason I was talking to my bank was to try and understand what's happening in their wonderful world in relation to the pandemic, and are there things I should be aware of? Are there opportunities I should be aware of? And one of the things that has happened this week is the banks nationally have started to pull the short-term financing options in relation to cash flow and COVID-19. So you will find that when the pandemic first broke, the banks were federally mandated by the government to support business any way possible, and I know my bank was brilliant, and I'm sure your bank was too. But now, we're 3 months, nearly 4 months down the track, and the banks are now going, you know what, there's no more temporary extensions, there's no more short-term financing. What you need to do is either trade out or turn that short-term debt into a longer-term commitment in order to protect your cash flow. And that's the conversation, cash flow. You see, I've seen profitable businesses fail because they don't have cash flow. See, right here, right now, and let's be honest, the Australian government has been tremendously generous in their support mechanisms during this unprecedented pandemic. You know, the JobKeeper solution has been fantastic. And there are so many businesses that have been affected. Now, the reality is many businesses were federally mandated. They had to shut hospitality, tourism, gyms, hotels, cafes, through no fault of their own. The list goes on. But there was a lot of other businesses that were affected because they went into a decentralised business model. That is, stay at home, save lives, work from home. Decreases of productivity, decreases of decisions, slowing down of cash flow. And because of that slowing down of cash flow, the Australian government released JobKeeper in order to help subsidise businesses to stay in business, to keep your employees employed. What's next? Well, this is what's going to be next. With the banks moving away from short-term empathetic support in relation to the pandemic, we know that the JobKeeper program has a finite life. And if you're struggling now, and we have not fully gone back into a centralised business model, it's only going to become more challenging as these support mechanisms start to pull away. You must start planning for what Christmas looks like, what November looks like, what October looks like now, because you won't have the support mechanisms in place. You need to start looking at what do you need to do to protect your cash flow. Because you may have a very profitable business, but if your debtor payments start slowing down, if your client base starts slowing down, it's not profit that brings you unstuck. What brings you unstuck is you just don't have enough money in the bank to pay your bills. And when the support's gone, what are you going to do? You see, because if the banks are making this process now, and the banks aren't doing anything wrong, they've been fantastic. They're just going back to being banks. Which also means in the next few months, the other elephant in the room will go back to being what they are. The Australian Tax Office will go back to being the Australian Tax Office, which means that if you've got delayed or deferred tax payments, they'll start calling that in. Once again, this is about pressure on cash flow. Don't get me wrong, the Australian government have been fantastic. They really, really have. You know it. I know it. But it's your responsibility and it's my responsibility to plan for tomorrow today. I implore you, if you do not reach out to your financial bankers, you should, and you need to. You need to understand what are all of your choices, what are your options. None of us like that. I don't like it, you don't like it. Protect your cash flow. Because if you don't protect your cash flow, cash is king. The only way you're going to stay in business and protect your business is protect that cash flow. On that note, I'm not trying to be downy or be overly negative, because it's not negative. But the best advice I can give you is pick up the phone today, talk to your relationship manager. If you don't have a relationship manager with your bank, pick up the phone today and make one. You need to understand this, because this is the absolute key to business success. Protect your cash flow. Ring your bankers, ring your suppliers, and by now I really hope that you've been talking to your customers. On that note, we'll talk to you again very, very soon. Have a great week. Pick up the phone today and you'll make it a great week. Take care.